Hello there, this is Scotty Sanders coming to you live on Facebook. Thanks for joining me. So hopefully I look very relaxed, a little more tan on my face, a little sun. Cindy and I this past week spent in Mexico celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. We had just a great time. I had a chance to spoil her a little bit, and I got to sit out and read every day, listen to podcasts. In fact, I read 3 books. I think I've read 8 or 9 magazines, listened to 2 or 3 podcasts. And actually, I think I wrote 7 Facebook talks, and I outlined another 11. So I've got plenty more to come down the road. So thanks for joining me tonight. This is actually episode 58. So if you've missed any of my past episodes, you can go to scottysanders.com and check those out. You can also just be on my business page, and most of those are listed there as well. So I appreciate you joining me. If you don't know me, my name is Scotty Sanders. I'm an international leadership consultant. I love getting to develop leaders. It's something I'm very passionate about. In fact, I love doing that even with teenagers, and that's why I wrote a book called Quest of the Keys, which empowers the next generation. So it teaches leadership and character education even to teenagers. And my wife wrote a book called Guardians of Light, part of the Quest of the Keys nonprofit that teaches lower elementary character education as well. So that's what we love to do, is pour into people and develop them. It's what we feel very privileged to get to do that. So my purpose in life is to encourage and to empower others to live, lead, and to finish well. And as part of doing that, I've had the, again, privilege, honor to do quite a bit of consulting through the years. Most of that's in nonprofits. A lot of those are in churches, but I've also had the privilege to work with businesses. So I've worked with, $200, $300 million businesses on down to $1 million business, and almost every size in between. In fact, I worked for a period of time with the state. I'm not going to give the name, where I did some leadership consulting with them, and then also a Fortune 150 company a number of years ago. So I've just had some opportunities to do that. So I thought my talk tonight would be, sharing a little bit of insight behind some consulting of the things that I try to help organizations with. And this is what I'm calling a case study, a tale of 2 companies, okay? Now, I'm not going to give the name of the companies, and some of this it's got a few years, well, let's just say a year or 2 in the past. So most people would never be able to figure out the name of those companies, because I always want to do things in a very confidential way. But I really think it's a good way to look at a contrast between 2 companies and how they went different directions. So company A would be a gentleman bought this company, I think it was about 5 years ago or 6 years ago now, I believe. It was a $2.5 million company. I'm not going to tell you the name of the company, but a $2.5 million company. And he turned that $2.5 million company. I had the honor to work with him starting early on in the process, doing some coaching with him and eventually coaching his executive team and then pretty much his leadership team. And I've been doing that over the last 6 years. And that company has grown from $2.5 million when he bought it to this year they're projecting to finish between $25 million and $30 million. Now, that's pretty substantial growth, you have to admit. So that's company A. Company B, I started working with them about 5 years ago, and just very direct and very specific with just one person in their organization who is their sales, somewhat their sales and marketing director, mostly in sales, but also had some oversight with the marketing. And their CEO and their C-level leaders really were not interested in coaching or consulting. They really just wanted, it was really more geared toward just their sales director. And so company B, about 5 years ago, they were about maybe a $2.5, $3 million company as well. And this year, or this past year, they did about $6 million. So they had substantial amount of sales. So they basically doubled their business in the last 5 years or so. So, but one company is now thriving and doing fantastic, and the other company, it may not even survive. Even though their sales have increased substantially, they've plateaued now and starting to decline, but really the cracks in the armor, if you will, have really started to show up. And so I want to talk to you about what I believe in any organization, in any company, the three non-negotiables, and I want to break that down and talk about each of these and then give you a rating on all three of these and why I believe company A is thriving and company B may not survive. Okay, so a little bit of a case study. Just my observation as a consulting, working with a lot of different companies, a lot of different organizations over the last 30 plus years. Okay, so here are the three non-negotiables I believe that every organization, every company needs to be successful. And one of these, and I'll drill down a little bit more, one of these, if you're not good at this, it will definitely eventually catch up to you, okay? And that's what happened at Company B. So here are the three things. One, you need to have a winning team, okay? You need to have a winning team. Second, you need to have winning processes, all right? Good processes. Third, you need to have a winning product. So those are the three things I believe that every company needs to have. Now, if you're a nonprofit, what you may need to think, well, what is your product? Okay, what's the service you're providing? So you need to kind of think through that, but still something that you're offering that's a need out there, that's providing a service, all right? So let's talk about what does it mean to be a winning team? And by the way, if I have a specialty or expertise, I think it's in this area on a winning team. I'm very passionate about this. I've been a student on this for many years. In fact, I was mentored by a person that worked for a multi-billion-dollar company and was the vice president of HR, and this was their forte. So, a lot of good experience, but also a lot of good training and mentoring that I received. So, winning team is really having a healthy culture within the organization. Not just culture, you can have unhealthy culture as well. So, when I think about healthy culture, there's certain things that when I work with an organization that I try to help them put into place. Now, this is not an entire list, but would be representative of the kind of things that I'd like to see in a winning team. So, and let me just say this on the onset, is this, that the teams that do best is when the leader that's the highest up in the organization, so the CEO, the president, takes the most responsibility, and not just they don't just say you need training, but they say I want to get the training myself. Because if they're not accountable at the highest level, it's going to be hard to incorporate these concepts to everybody else. You just lose some credibility. So that's one of the things I try to work with. That, and that's not always the case, but when the leader takes the leadership mantle to say, I need coaching as much as anybody, it goes a long way. So one of the things I try to instill in a winning team is they understand this multiplier concept. And that is, it's not just about doing, but it becomes about how do we develop people? How do we multiply ourselves, that we're in this developmental of people business? And at the end of the day, we're all in the people business. So why don't we spend more time developing people? Very important on getting a winning team. And another one would be putting into place guiding principles. Now, you hear having certain values and those are important. And I'm not, in some ways it can be semantics, but when I think about guiding principles, it's how we work together as a team. If you want to have a winning team, you need to know how you work together. And so I help organizations to develop over a period of time. Usually it takes 6 months to a year to really develop it out where ownership throughout the organization takes place. But it's a game changer within that organization if the CEO or president takes ownership and accountability there. Guiding principles. I could do a whole training, a whole Facebook Live just on guiding principles. Just so I'm whetting your appetite a little bit, but guiding principles there. Another one would be healthy conflict resolution. Listen, in any organization, in any family, there's going to be conflict, but there needs to be a healthy way to resolve conflict. So that's one of the things I do to create this healthy culture, this winning team, is make sure there's a healthy way to resolve conflict. And there has to be trust within the organization. If you don't trust people that you work with, that's going to be a problem. It just is. So you've got to trust each other. And then again, hit on this one more time, accountability. Everybody must be accountable. And the leader, the higher up in leadership, the most accountable you must be. So those are some ideas of what does a winning team look like? And then winning processes. One of those could be having a salary administration process. And that, by the way, fits into the winning team as well. But these, again, just representative salary administration process, a budgeting process, a purchasing process, a marketing process, a sales process, a customer care process. And these will vary depending on the organization. But again, having good processes. Processes or systems lead to sustainability. So if you don't have good systems or processes, you're reinventing the wheel every time you turn around. So they're important. They really create a little bit of that backbone, if you will, of how things should operate. And the third one would be a winning product or a winning service. Okay, so is there quality there? I've always said in my consulting business, I would rather defend my price than have to apologize for the quality of the service that I provide. And I live with that. Listen, I'm not saying I'm cheap in what I do, but I never have to apologize for the quality in which I deliver things. And then, is there value with the service or product that you provide? People got to be perceived value there. Another thing would be, does it meet a need in the marketplace? It may be great, but if no one needs it, so what? And then, are you somewhat competitive? And I don't think you need to go for the lowest in the market, but you've got to be in the ballpark within the universe of what people are shopping for. So you got to have a little bit of competitive, let's just say you got to be in the ballpark of being competitive, but don't feel like you've got to be the low person, the cheapest. Be competitive, but it's better to me to be on the high end. So again, those are the three non-negotiables I believe that every organization needs to have: winning teams, winning processes, and a winning product or service. So let me talk to you about Company A. And I'm just going to give you a brief little sketch. So Company A, when I started working with them, my primary focus again was working with their CEO and their C-level leaders. That's what I did for the first couple of years. In fact, probably the first year just with the CEO, and then they expanded to the executive team. Now I'm training people almost in every part of their organization. So it's really, these things are becoming inculcated into the organization. They're having a common language in which they talk about how to resolve conflict, how to develop a personal plan, how to be a multiplier, how to build trust within the organization. It's the coolest thing, and it's something that every organization can do, and it really doesn't cost that much money to do it. So that's Company A. And so if I had to rate Company A in these three non-negotiables, this is how I would rate them as of right now. I would rate them on a winning team as an A. Okay, and if I'm having a bad day, maybe A minus. If it's a good day, A plus. But let me just give them a good solid A. They're a company I would want to work for because of the kind of people they are and the organization that they're building. And then on winning processes, I would give them a C plus in that range. And they know that's an area they've got to get better as they've grown. They've kind of grown faster than their processes. They just added someone new to their team probably 4 or 5 months ago, and he's really helped them in the process side. Okay, and then on winning product, I give them a B. And the reason I do that is not that they don't have a good product, but they don't have anything really way different than anybody else. They've got other competitors that are very similar. But because of the winning team, it separates them because their service is so much better. How they treat people, how they operate as a staff is just much more life-giving, as you will. So that's how I would view Company A. Company B, my primary focus there was really just working again with the sales director. And so the sales director would work with his team, but really didn't do much work beyond that. They didn't want to focus on the CEO or the COO or the CIO. It was strictly, or the CFO, it was strictly the sales director. So it really became somewhat of a vacuum just for that person because they couldn't incorporate these concepts throughout the organization. Again, the company grew from about 3 million to 6 million, which was great, but because a lot of the other people in the organization saw when they were making sales, that was a bad thing, not a good thing, because it created more work for them. You can see how that can be a problem. The sales team was tearing it up, but the people that were installing it and the project managers and so forth, they saw it as a headache to deal with. So this is how I would rate Company B. and it would be their winning teams, I would give them a D minus. Highly dysfunctional. And I'm not saying there's not some good people there, because there are, but highly dysfunctional, poor leadership, poor decision making, no investing in developing the team, no guiding principles, no good way to resolve conflict. And they continue to hire people that made it even more unhealthy because they attracted unhealthy people. A healthy organization tends to attract healthier staff members. It's just birds of a feather. It flocks together. You know that old saying. So again, winning team, D minus. And I would give them an F on a bad day and a D on a good day, but definitely not a winning team. But winning processes, I would give them at least a B. They really had good processes in play. They were very systems process oriented. And on their product, I would give them an A minus. They really had a good product, and that's why their sales went so far. But eventually the poor team, poor leadership is sinking them. And I would be surprised if they survive much longer. And so you've got to get that winning team. All three of these are really important. They're non-negotiables to me in an organization, but you have to have the winning team. And so the big takeaway, a company can have a winning process or processes and a winning product, but without a winning team, it's just not going to make it. So I want to encourage you, if you're part of a company, encourage your team to look at how can we have a winning team? How can we handle conflict better? How can we build trust? How can we develop our guiding principles? How can we be in the people development business more than just a product business? And that will make a huge difference in any organization. I try to focus first and foremost on building a winning team. And that leads to, long-term success and sustainability. You can have short-term success without a winning team, but eventually the wheels will come off without winning team. Well, listen, I hope this has helped you. And this would be one of those, you ought to share it with some people. So that would really help me if you would share this. All you have to do is hit the share button. And that would be a way that you can get this content out to some other people. And listen, I missed you last week because, again, I was in Mexico last week enjoying some time with my wife, and we had a great time. But it really allowed me to sharpen myself a little bit as I got to read and to study and prepare for additional Facebook talks coming. And I've got some very exciting ones coming up. I think you'll be very interested to hear some of the talks that are coming up pretty soon. Well, listen, I hope you will lead well. Mondays are always important to get off to a great start. So I hope you'll lead well this week until we get back together next time. Take care.